and it's heartbreaking. And like, honestly, I sometimes feel guilty, like, because our story is not that. Like, it's like, I mean, I remember sitting with someone telling them how she walked out of the hospital 36 hours later, and the person told me I was a liar.
Yeah.
There's no way that didn't happen. And I'm like,
it's like almost unbelievable.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah. And it's like, and so I was like, they're like, well, my mom, and like, and I get it because they're still working through the pain of it.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's like, I almost am like, I don't want to share sometimes because it's like bragging or being like, oh, well, my wife went through this, and guess what? We just sailed right through it. It was easy. Because it wasn't. But
well, it's hard sometimes too, because when you share it that way and you say that you kind of gave it to the Lord, and then other people are like, well, we did too.
Yeah.
So why does the Lord love you more than us? And it didn't work for us. That gets hard. It's a hard situation because, I mean, I've been in the same thing. We helped my mother-in-law cure her pancreatic cancer through a protocol that we did a long time ago, about 10 years ago, about 8 years ago. And, I mean, it was amazing, but we had to move in with her. We were juicing for her, like 14 pounds of veggies a day, juicing. And she was on tons of oils, tons of supplements, like, we did everything for her. It was like she was in a hospital, right? We were the hospital. And that was a year of our lives that we moved in with her, with our kids, to take care of her. And but then it's that same type of thing. I would give the exact same protocol to somebody else for their parent or somebody that was going through something similar, and it wouldn't work out. And I know how you feel, man. It's like you feel almost guilty, like even sharing that, or you feel responsible for sharing something to somebody else, and then it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I had to remove myself years ago. I had to remove myself from. First off, I stopped sharing that protocol with people because there's just too many. There's too many different variables with each individual situation. You just
100%.
I can't guarantee anything, but I'll just say, this is what I did. This is what we did for my mother-in-law, and it turned out great. You might as well try. Even if you choose to go another route as well, like, you might as well try this stuff and see, give it up to God. But I can't guarantee anything. And I used to be so confident about it before, and then I'm like, oh, I can't do this, because then I'm feeling like I'm responsible for these people.
Yeah. It's hard, and you have to sort of, for me, I mean, I've gotten to a place where I've gotten a lot more passionate about helping people understand the power of passive income, understanding the power of, we talk about like control what you can control. I had this conversation with a friend of mine last night. And we were talking about a few things, and, he's real frustrated with like the state of the world right now, and some of the mandates and some of the politics and the things. And he asked me, he's like, well, what do you do about all that? And I said, listen, it's not that I don't care, but I don't care because I've created it's that. And we also have made choices in our life. I'm 47 years old, and in the last 10 years, we've made choices in our life to remove ourselves from as much of the systems that might control me.
Yeah.
So that I could gain more control. So,
setting yourself up.
Yeah. It's just, like, for example, and I don't know, you edit out whatever you want, but like, he was talking about, vaccines and what do we do and how do we handle it? I said, look, my kids don't go to school. We don't have traditional jobs. So a lot of the things that are used to move people to make certain choices, they don't have that leverage over me. Like, until you take away my driver's license, I can choose for myself how I choose to live. And I've created an income structure that is fairly sound. And so since my wife's stroke, that's sort of become a lot of my mission. It's why I launched my podcast. It's why we double down on our business. was, you know, most people can't, in the face of adversity, go, I'm taking 6 months off work and expect their bills to be paid and expect their business to grow. I mean, I didn't expect their business to grow, but I knew that it would at least be solid enough for us to get through that storm. Sure. And so for me, like, my passion coming out of that has been helping people go, you know, or discover, like, when you can start to create the environments where you have more control over what you can say or do, you're going to be able to weather the storm better. Because, like, John, you were saying, like, you would share a protocol with somebody and you would tell them what to do. And I'm sure you probably got a lot of the same responses we did. Well, that takes a lot of time. I don't have that much money. Right. I can't afford 14 pounds of produce a day. And it's like, well, okay, that's cool. I understand that. So let's create that lifestyle now so that if this happens again,
for sure,
you can handle it. And because we get a lot of that too. You know, we'll tell people, hey, you know, this is what Carrie did and this is how we did it. Like, well, my husband works. And I'm like, yep, he does right now, but let's fix that. Or, you know.
Yeah, right.
And so for me, it just, you know, like, I mean, when we first started having kids, I worked nights and she worked days because we wanted to always have our kids with us and not at daycare or with, and so we didn't see each other for 2 years, which probably hurt our marriage a little bit.
Sure.
And then we went, okay, well, let's fix that. And, you know, with our situation now, we have 8 kids, 2 of them are adults, 6 of them still live at home. And it's, you know, I could probably go find a traditional job and we could make more overall income, but then I miss out on being a dad.
Yeah,
I miss out on, and so I don't and I would have to, there's trade-offs. Then I would lose some of that decision-making power over my own life.
Of course. Yeah. Dude, I totally hear you on that. You know what's awesome? Keith is going to come out to our real retreat, and he's going to talk about this.
That's awesome.
Financial stuff.
Yeah.
Amazing. He and Justin Harrison.
Yeah.
So we'll be revealing some of that. Yeah, it's so awesome. We're so excited. We're going to try and get Shane to come with us. February,
let's
man.
Make it happen, man.
Yeah, let's make it happen. I know there's some stuff that might be in the way, but we'll figure it out, dude. We'll get you there.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what it is how do you figure it out? How do you...
Right.
That's it. You just identify one problem and work through them as they come up.
So you have the Shift podcast, the Shift interview, right?
Yeah. So I do a daily podcast that is really me basically reading my journal.
Okay.
Or going through concepts and ideas that are presented, you know, current events, things like that. You know, we'll maybe talk about Jordan Peterson. We'll maybe talk about something going on culturally.
Yeah.
Right.
And I always try to bring that through the lens of something that's thought provoking to how am I showing up in my life?
Yeah. Right.
And help you to kind of start to think about how am I showing up for myself, for my family, where am I being intentional, through that lens of accountability and really, like, we've got to get more vulnerable and really talk about what we want, how we feel, so that we can actually become accountable. And then Fridays I do the Shift interview, which is typically with people. So far, it's all been men. It's not been intentional. It's just kind of the direction it's gone. Sure. And mostly people who've overcome adversity, like yourself, overcome addictions, overcome tragedies, overcome things where they've had to, like, dig deep and really go, okay, am I going to let this ruin me or am I going to let this empower me? And how do I, you know, like, I mean, I think your story is a fascinating one, Shane, and I love how you've turned it into a mission and a movement. And those are the things that inspire me. And so, I mean, I kind of got pushed last year into our essential oil business is pretty strong and it's good. And the truth be told, you know, my wife is the face of that. She people are involved in that mostly because of her. You know, I've enrolled people and I educate and I teach a lot of the same classes she does, but it's more her passion and more her thing. And I manage that with her, but I was really trying to figure out, like, what am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
And I got kind of backed into a corner. yeah, and I was in an event and we were working through some stuff, and I kind of got backed into a corner to figure out what where my passion lied, and I just kind of vomited this whole thing about accountability and helping men and
Yeah.
helping them get vulnerable. And the person I was working with was like, okay, so how do you do that?
Yeah.
I
It's
don't
tough,
know.
Yeah. Let's figure
You
that
know,
out.
Yeah, and this idea of a podcast kept coming up, and I was like, seriously? Like, there's 4 million, like, who cares about
Yeah.
another
Yep.
podcast?
I know.
But it just kept coming back, and so I said, fine, I'm going to pull the trigger and see what happens. And we actually crossed over, we had our 3,000th download this week. So
well, cool.
Awesome, dude. That's so great.
Yeah, so people apparently are listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really good.
Yeah. And that, I don't know how that all works, like the analytics of that, because I don't ever download a podcast, so I don't know how that even works. Yeah.
Does it mark it as a download if you listened to it on your device? Is that what it is?
I don't know.
Yeah. So it essentially means that, like, so the download just means that
Okay. Yeah.
3,000, not people, but yeah, it's been listened to in some form or another 3,000 times.
Yeah.
And that's the audio formats that are on like Spotify and Apple or wherever, because the YouTube thing's a whole other numerical thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and it's I mean, there's so many podcasts out there, and I do a daily one. So if I get 15, 20 people to listen a day, that number adds up pretty quick.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And it's still, so yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Keith, your story is amazing. Your wife's story is amazing. She's definitely she definitely has an iron will. We'll say that.
100%.
She is tough. Is there anything you'd like to share with our listeners? Just something that inspires, something that you live by, that you can share with our listeners?
Yeah, I think, gosh, there's a lot, but the thing that popped into my head, so I'll trust that and go with it, is a Gary Vaynerchuk quote. A woman stops him on the street and says, "Give me the best 3 words of advice you can." And his response is, "You're gonna die." And she's like, "Wow, seriously?" And he's like, "Yeah, you're gonna die. So between now and then, what you do with it is all that matters."
Yep.
And man, that that's it, right?
Yeah, it is. You got to own that dash between the day you were born to the day you die. Own the dash, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So I think that's, one of the things I told my wife shortly after her stroke. We were sitting on the step out front of our house, and she didn't have to tell me, but I knew she was having suicidal thoughts, and she was having a really hard time. And I told her, I said, "Look, I don't know what today brings. I don't know what tomorrow brings. I don't know what the future brings, but I need you to promise me that you'll fight, and I need you to promise me that you'll live fully." So it's something we've sort of adopted. It's like, whatever you got to give, let's do it 100%. And I think that's the thing, that if we can do that every day, we're gonna do as much as we can.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. That's amazing. Well, we want to invite everybody to like this, share it, join our community of Iron Will, and any last words, Shane?
Not much for me. Yeah, I just
Great
amazed,
episode.
like, of all the things your wife had to go through, and in turn how you had to go through it also in a different way, and it's just an amazing story. And like, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thanks for being on, Keith.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate the invite. I really appreciate an opportunity to share. And we look back on our story and we go, "Oh, that was interesting." And I think it's important that other people hear, like Shane. I mean, I would say the same thing, man. Your story is amazing, and you're an inspiration as well. And the more that we can, build communities like this, the better.
Yeah.
So thank you guys. Thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you again. Is there so social media platform, anything that people can can check you out, and what's the actual name of the podcast, all that kind of stuff. So then, people, when they hear this, they can